My name is John Mendez, and I am your host. Welcome to Walk to Wealth, where I motivate and inspire people new to the world of personal finance by letting you all in behind the scenes of someone who's still on his way. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. For all my new listeners, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you can make it. For all the OGs in the building, welcome back home. Thank you for all the loyalty and all the support. In today's episode, we are going to be picking up right where we left off in last week's interview. Still going to be going over what is your why, establishing SMART goals, taking action, having multiple streams of income, and the importance of mentors. So without further ado, let's get right into this episode. I mean, you got your skin in the game a little bit. So it's like when you come up to somebody, you obviously have something, your value proposition already in place. You can offer a lot of different things with the different avenues that you have on. But like for someone kind of similar to me in my situation, where we're kind of still getting our heads on our shoulders, might just be starting off, or might have read a couple books and have some information. But how do you go about, for someone like me, going to find a mentor? What would you suggest?
I would go to networking events. Those are easy to find. Meetups, whatnot. I'm a big social media guy, Facebook. I made a lot of great business contacts on Facebook, and just follow the ones that you respect. And again, don't be shy. Reach out to them, private message them, introduce yourself. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of what you could offer to them. And that's the other thing. Don't be all about take. That's another good piece of advice I have. Always try to offer back and be respectful of them. Don't just try to suck their knowledge and not give it, because you'd be surprised. Everyone can offer something back to someone else. Whether you're a new aspiring business person talking to a very accomplished multimillionaire that seemingly has it all, offer your help, and it's a two-way street. And that will, I promise you, get you more respect from a very senior person than anything. That humility and that offer of trying to find a way to help them out, that's going to get you in a lot of traction.
Definitely. And I think for me, that's something I learned pretty early on. So one of my first mentors, it's funny because he's actually in commercial real estate, which I'm not really doing anything in right now. But what had happened was, so me and one of my good friends, we went out to eat at Sign of the Whale, which is a restaurant that I work at still. And we're pretty much just hanging out, talking, and he ended up leaving the table for a little bit. And I was wondering, like, where'd he go? And so he ended up seeing one of my old counselors from Boys and Girls Club. And they were talking by the bar. So I ended up walking over to see what they were talking about. And they were setting up a one-on-one with him and the guy that's in commercial real estate. And they were like, "Hey, John, aren't you interested in real estate as well?" I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm interested." And so you're like, "Hop on the call." And so at the end of to be honest, during the call, I don't remember anything that he said. I just remember at the very end, he said, "Find a mentor." Right. And so immediately after that call, I reached out to him and asked him to get on a one-on-one Zoom call. And pretty much that was back in February of 2021 up until pretty much a little bit past the time I got my license in September. I met with him either like once a month or once every other month. And he kind of guided me and gave me some direction to end up getting my real estate license. So that was super helpful for me. And even with the CT RIA event, the very first event that I went to in December, the one you invited me on when you were on the panel,
sure.
I remember we were talking about interest rates. And so I did a little bit of homework. And so I already knew kind of where interest rates were headed. So I chipped in a little bit. And right after that, though, what had happened is I followed up with a question. I was like, "Hey, we're talking about like mortgage rates and interest rates and stuff like that, but like, what about hard money loans? Like, where are those interest rates projected to be?" And then right there, before they answered my question, they asked me like, "Hey, like, what's your name? Like, where are you from? Like, and how old are you?" And it was like, "Yeah." So I introduced myself in front of everyone, and they pretty much were like, "Hey, like that was a sharp question. Like that was a very good question and stuff like that." And then that alone, like, was able to like get me connected with some people there. And now the COO, Ed Matthew, which is a good friend of ours, I actually have a meeting with him tomorrow at the time of recording this. So me and him, we've been meeting for a couple of times, and he's been a blessing. Like he's been helping me kind of get a little bit of a vision as to where I should invest and stuff. I kind of narrow it down my like crystal clear criteria. And he's someone who has a lot of skin in the game as well. And
Yes.
so that's mentors come from random places. Pretty much is what I'm trying to say. It's like you'll be surprised. It's like kind of as if once you're geared towards achieving something, it's like it'll pop up. Definitely, at least from my personal experience.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you were vulnerable. You took action, which is the whole thing. You know, I'm big on that. You know, I push you all the time, take action. And you said it earlier on this recording that, you know, don't get me wrong. Education is important. Watch those YouTube videos, read the books. It's always great, but don't drown in it. Don't be a career student, right? The best way to learn is to do. And it's scary, right? We'll steal another story that you hear Ed talk about all the time. I mean, Ed, for everyone in the audience, is a very accomplished investor, has hundreds of units, flips a lot of properties. But I love what he says. He's like, every single time he signs a contract, his hand shakes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I bring that up for your audience here because it's okay to be a little scared. I mean, be smart, you know, do your diligence and whatnot, but you just got to dive in and, you know, don't be afraid to fail, as they say. That's a real thing. It's a very real thing because that's the only way to kind of get to where you want to be. You're not going to be brilliant and really achieve just by reading books and YouTube videos for years and years and years. It's just
definitely. There's one quote that said, you know, the hardest belt to achieve in karate is the white belt, because most people will simply just not take the action ever. And so, like, while we're on this subject of taking action, it's like, what, you know, can you tell us a little bit like about your very first deal? You know, how'd that go? How'd you gain the courage to actually go about that?
Sure. Oh, you've heard this story before, but no, so my first deal 8 or so years ago. It was me taking action. It was probably literally about a week after I left that hotel room at Stanford with Tarek Al-Musa's seminar.
Okay.
Went on Facebook, joined as many Facebook real estate groups as I can, and I ran into a guy who, again, great mentor of mine today. He's one of the more accomplished real estate investors and overall entrepreneurs in Connecticut. And, you know, he had bought 2 single family homes in Binghamton, New York, sight unseen. I think he probably paid about $10,000 a house up there. And he's like, listen, it just sounded like a decent deal, so I just did it. But I don't have the time to find a buyer. So any wholesalers out there that can find me a buyer, I'll pay a buyer's fee. Now, I wasn't licensed agent yet. I was just wholesaling. You don't need a license to be a wholesaler, as you know. And so I just took it on. I dove in, worked it, started to apply my marketing skills I took from my ad career, and just worked it for a while. I even took a drive up there in the winter, which in Binghamton, New York is not easy. So I kind of saw the properties. They were a total mess, nightmare. But after a little while of networking, I found a buyer that was willing to take them on. And, you know, I was really excited about it, but I've also learned not to count your chickens until closing. So, you know, I say that because there was a squatter in the properties. It was the son of the seller.
What's a squatter for anyone that may not know what's that?
Yeah, sure. A squatter is someone that's just been at a property without a lease and not paying rent or anything, that just kind of parks themselves there. And after a while, they just don't want to leave. You know, they won't leave. That's what a squatter is in real estate. And so, you know, I was honest with the buyer. I wasn't going to hide that. And the buyer understood. He's like, that's fine. You know, I'll take it on. I'll deal with it. And, you know, this guy was an experienced investor, pretty tough minded. And so, so great. We got under contract. The title company got everything in shape. So, we got to the day of the closing, and, you know, I got a call from the buyer of mine, and he's like, Dave, I'm out. I'm like, what happened? He's like, the squatter set the house on fire. And fortunately, it wasn't as major as it seems, but just the concept. So essentially, the squatter, you know, heard of this. He didn't want to leave the free rent or the free house that he was living in that his mom had, you know, had. So he lit the front steps on fire. It got a little bit of a flame, enough that, you know, the fire marshal was nearby and noticed it, and you know, fortunately caught it before it engulfed the whole house. But you know, unfortunately, the buyer's like, you know what, I'm a tough guy, but I can't handle that. So unfortunately, he backed out. And I ended up not closing the deal because we lost that buyer. And at that point, another buyer stepped up that my mentor found, which is fine. But I bring that story up because, again, it taught me a couple of very important things. It taught me, again, the hustle that I referred to, that I just jumped on this. And again, talking about building respect, that mentor of mine, who that partner was at the time, he remembered that hustle and that hunger that I had. And again, that was 8 years later. He and I are still very close, and I learn from him all the time. But the other thing is, you're going to run into a lot of interesting things in any business, but especially real estate investing. That's one. There's war stories. I'm sure the other investors have that are even worse than that. So you have to just roll with the punches. Just move on. It didn't deter me to stop wholesaling, despite me putting a good 2 or 3 months of hard work into that and not getting the deal, but it just propelled me. I try to take things like that to kind of make me better for the next one.
Yeah.
Very important thing.
And so then the question I want to ask you, because you say roll with the punches. And so what, mentally, like what was going on in your head? You worked 2 or 3 months to get that very first deal. And like right after that, it's kind of like you just got sucker punched and you did something you weren't expecting at all. How do you keep on going after that, knowing that you spend all that time working for a deal to fail? How did you not give up?
I mean, I'm just a competitive guy. I try to teach my children to kind of never quit, do your best and don't do that. So, it was much that. And plus, but at the same time, I'll admit, I'm like, hey, is this a business that I'm cut out for? I had a good career, already. And so and believe me, the ad industry is not easy either. Big time advertising. Those are whole different war stories that I have there, but it's just kind of going out and again, this partner of mine kind of, talked me through, but I got my next deal probably about a month later. I just kind of applied, I learned and moved forward. And like I was saying earlier, you just have to know that anything is possible. So you always have to try to do your diligence as best you can when you're evaluating a real estate deal, because anything is possible, good or bad. and just, you just got to deal with it, that you're not alone. I don't care if you're a billionaire and real estate investor or a newbie, it's going to happen. You just got to keep pushing.
Yeah, no. All right. And one last thing I kind of want to talk about before we get closer to wrapping things up is we talked about wholesaling a lot. It's no money down. Why do you think that wholesaling is a good route for a lot of people that don't really have any like real estate experience or to get into the game and actually get something going out of it?
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, it's good because you don't need any financial resources. It literally is something you can do without a penny of your own money. It's doable. Sure, there's a lot of wholesalers that spend money on marketing and so on and so forth, but you don't need to. It's possible to find a deal and wrap it up. And that's probably the number one thing. You can make some good transactions just with your effort and your time. And I think that's why it's a good first step of the process there. You're finding a motivated seller that's willing to sell their property for below market value. You get that property under contract for equitable interest in the property where you have the ability to control it, right?
Yeah. Can you really quick? What is equitable interest?
Equitable interest means you have control of the property. So once you sign something under contract with a seller of a property, they can't, during the term of that contract, sell it to anyone else except for you. And so that equitable interest, and a big business philosophy is there's many different very successful individuals say, hey, don't own, control. You don't have to own things to be able to make money off of them. And so that's to the next step of what the benefit of wholesaling is. The risk, I mean, there's risks in everything, but there's less risk because once you get that equitable interest in the property, then you have the ability to go out there, and as long as the property contract is assignable, which is important to negotiate that clause into the deal with the seller, then you've got the ability to go out there and assign the rights and responsibilities that you've secured based on the agreement that you formalized with the seller of the property. And then you assign those rights and responsibilities to a third party end buyer. And the way wholesalers make money is that they find a buyer willing to pay more than what the seller is willing to sell it to them. And then you make the difference. It has to be off market for all those realtors out there. I'm also a realtor, and I still do wholesale with the permission of my broker, but it's got to be off market. In the state of Connecticut, you can't do that on market because that's a net listing, which is illegal. However, off market, it's totally legal, and wholesaling is completely legitimate in that regard.
And really quickly, what's the difference between on market and off market? What's that?
Yeah, no, good question. And so off market basically means it's not in the MLS. You know, the MLS is the legal listing service here for realtors. So once it's on the MLS, it's considered on market. It's promoted to the real estate community of realtors and buyers and sellers in that regard. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's considered on market, where typically, you know, for the most part, it means that you're working with a licensed realtor that's representing you formally as your listing agent. Mm-hmm. Now, off market means that it hasn't quite yet hit the MLS. And so that masses that are, you know, seeing the MLS out there, you know, are not seeing it as much if it's off market. Mm-hmm. You know, the reason why a lot of people like off market as buyers and investors is because, especially in the hot sellers market they're in right now, going through, it tends to be less competition. You know, not as many people know about it. And so less people that know about it, the less competition. So it's one thing to go about it. And from a seller's perspective, it's a little bit more nimble. If they're working, you know, I was a wholesaler for many years before I got my realtor's license. I had good reasons to get my realtor's license, but you know, the ability to kind of maybe be a little bit more nimble and less formality of the process is what a lot of sellers really prefer about just dealing with a non-real estate, a licensed realtor. It's just a different process in that regard.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And so sure. I know we kind of covered a lot this podcast. So what would you say is like a call to action, like for everyone that's listening to this podcast? Like, what should they get out there and start doing right away?
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing is write your why. You know, sit down and make it substantial. Really put thought into it. You know, I talked about some of my whys, right? My family, helping others, being financially independent, that freedom, if you will. But a big part of your why too is not about the money. It's about what kind of life do you want to lead? You know, what are the fun things in life, right? It's important to really list out, like, I'm a hardworking guy. I know you're a hardworking guy. You don't want to work your life away. You gotta take a step away and recharge. So what do you like to do? Do you like to travel? Do you want to buy nice cars or, go do different things, different experiences? Because I'll tell you why it's important, because there's going to be days, I don't care how successful you are, where you're just going to hate the business which you're in, whether it's a crazy case like a squatter trying to burn down your deal or some seller that is just screaming at you because you're not doing what they want you to do. They're going to call the police on you, whatever else. I don't care how tough you are, you're going to have times, because we're all human beings as well, that you're going to be like, God, I really don't want to get up the next morning and do this. And so it's important to go back and, go thumb through, that catalog of that favorite car that you want to, buy someday, or go take that trip. What college you want to be able to afford to send your kids to, and whatnot, because that's going to give you that push, that mental push, which is necessary to keep doing those necessary steps every single day to get you to where you need to be. And that's why the why is important, because, before you get into your business plan, and are you going to be a flipper? Are you going to be a buy and hold guy? Are you going to get into e-commerce or crypto, whatever else? You got to get organized in your thoughts and what's going to motivate you. All the soul and heart in our bodies. I don't care who you are. You got to know yourself. And that's why the why is probably the first thing I recommend anyone to do to really get that foundation to what the next step is.
Definitely makes sense. That's perfect. And then, so with all the things you got coming along now already on like that you got on going on now, is there anything you got coming up in the future? Any future plans, any other businesses that you starting, any books, maybe any events that you might be a panel a guest on? What you got going on?
No, sure. No, I appreciate that. So, so we talked a lot about my real estate business, buying and selling. I'm trying to really build up, a bird dog team, just try to go out there. So anyone out there that wants to, learn more about real estate and is serious about it, we'll talk about how to reach me later in this podcast.
Really quick, what's a bird dog? What's for anyone that may not know?
Sure. A bird dog is a relatively new aspiring investor that is out there just looking for potential deals, and they bring it to wholesalers and real estate professionals like myself. And what I do is when a bird dog brings me a lead like that, I'll work to close it. I'll pay them a bird dog fee. They'll make money off of this, but I also use it as a teaching moment. I bring these aspiring investors in their own right, how I get the deal done and use it as a teaching moment. So that's what I'm doing. But I'm also expanding into different essential services. For example, I'm with a really great organization called ACN that I just started working. They're the largest essential services company out there. And it's a way for me to tie in to my real estate business. About 85% of the people that are doing that business are real estate professionals. And so I've incorporated that into my business. And it's just one more different product and service I could offer to my real estate clients while at the same time making passive income off of it. So I'm in week 4. I've already been promoted 2 times in the process. I've got some really great new connections in that regard. So that's one thing that I'm building off of. And then I'm also getting into the e-commerce space with a couple different connections, because what I'm trying to do is, well, as we talked about a lot on this podcast, real estate's my core, but what I'm really realistically trying to build my company mission is, how do I leverage my network? Yeah. And I've got a pretty, for being in business for a long time, I've got a pretty good network. I enjoy networking, as you know. I love really kind of expanding my network every single day. Your network is your net worth, is the cliche, right? But it's spot on. And so I'm really right now trying to find opportunities that through my connections that I'm making, that I can incorporate and bring to the rest of my network, and bring them opportunities going to help them grow. But at the same time, it's going to help generate different revenue. Some people that might not have an interest in real estate as an investment, or they're not looking to buy or sell anything of their own real estate right now, but they might have a passion for e-commerce, or just something to invest in that's a little bit diversification of their portfolio outside of the stock market or anything. So I'm really excited about those opportunities. Plus, I'm working with some good people that I've had relationships in the past. And that's the other thing that I'm really fortunate about. That when you become an entrepreneur, you have a lot more control of who you work with. That's the other thing. Don't sell your soul for money on people that are bad people. I fired some people that could have made me some good amount of money, but I just didn't like their scruples. They weren't the high integrity people. I don't want to get in bed with those kind of guys. I just don't. And so the people that I'm starting to do business with, the people that I've really started to build strong bonds with, and that's the fun for me. That's what's going to help you really stay motivated and enjoy kind of the everyday life of your business.
Definitely. And so, Dave, what we do here on this podcast is at the end of every episode, we want to ask you what we call our fast five quick questions that you have to think of right off the top of your head. Okay. So we're just going to get right into it, right? So What's your favorite music artist, or who's your favorite music artist?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Oh man. I'm a big classic rock guy, so probably Zeppelin. I like Zeppelin.
Zeppelin, okay. What's your favorite condiment?
My favorite condiment? Oh God, these are good ones. Maybe sriracha sauce. I like sriracha. The Southwest sauce.
Okay.
Probably one of those two. I like spices. I like the spice.
Okay. What's your favorite pizza topping?
Oh boy, I'm a meat lover, so probably sausage and pepperoni.
Pepperoni. Okay. Can't go wrong with that. What was your favorite show or movie growing up?
Oh God, my favorite show or movie. I love Goodfellas. Goodfellas. You hear these all the time. Hey, what movie are you going to watch every single time it comes on, no matter what time of day? It's Goodfellas. That's. Mm-hmm. If that comes on at midnight on a work night, I'll probably stop it for beginning and end.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And then the last one is, if you were a DJ, what would your DJ name be?
Oh God. Oh my God. Well, you get some good questions. What's my DJ name? Oh, I'm kind of boring and dull. Oh man. I don't know. I'm really putting myself out there. So when I was in high school, this one, I worked at a pizza place and my guy called me Dino Dave. That was my nickname, my pizza place, Dino Dave. very corny. So I'm sure going to get a lot of, I'm going out. Like I said, you got to put yourself out there, right? So I'm exposing my vulnerability and kind of putting myself out there. A corny old nickname I had when I was in high school. But it's more so because I'm just not, while I'm creative in a lot of ways, I'm just not cool. I'm not a cool guy.
Yeah. So DJ Dino Dave.
I'm not cool enough to be a DJ. I'll admit that.
All right. And Dave, so where can we find you at? Where can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, got a lot of different ways. I probably have like 5 different email addresses, but I check them all very real. So, you could find me at just Dave at homebuyerct.com. That's my email. But Facebook, I'm on Facebook probably 2 or 3 hours a day minimum. That's where I get a lot of my leads and a lot of my networking. And on that note, I failed to mention, you asked me what some of my bigger projects. I just started a Facebook real estate group for Connecticut about 6 weeks ago. That it's kind of like in the beta stage right now. I'm kind of letting it ruminate on its own, but I have big plans. I really kind of program it and add value there. But the name of my Facebook group, which everyone please reach out, I'd love to have you part of it, is called CT Off Market Real Estate Deals and Funding. And it kind of goes back to, and a lot of the mission is to really help us all, wholesalers, investors, realtors, just try to promote and make each other aware of these off-market deals that maybe the sellers want to be on the market, because we need inventory, right?
Yeah.
Every single day. And so it's a great group. It's going to be a good mix of networking, teaching, some fun, and just general helping each other out. The other great thing about real estate is the fact that while obviously it's competitive in a lot of ways, there's also a great way to for multiple people to share in the benefits of one real estate deal. So I think that's the main that. Those are probably the 2 best. I've got many, but that'll you'll find me. I'm in both those places. My email and my Facebook handle every single day.
And I'll make sure to add those to the show notes so everyone can find you. But
sure.
Besides that, I think that is all for today, Dave. I just want to say super thanks for hopping on to the podcast. We had this in the plans for quite some time now, so I'm glad that you were finally able to hop on. And I think this episode will be definitely super valuable. I think the people listening will definitely got a big takeaway as to find your why before they get into the nitty gritty as to which avenue you want to take. So that's super helpful. And as I said, thank you for hopping on the podcast today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Take care, Dave.
You too.
And that is all for this interview. The core message that we hope you took away from it is that we want you to identify your goals, whether that's, in 90 days, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, and someday way off in the future. But, just pick a goal that you can reach for and strive for, right? And then establish your why. Once you establish your why, that's pretty much you putting in the fuel in your car to drive to your goal. Because as soon as the road get bumpy, if you don't have your why, you're always going to end up falling. And then taking action. Don't wait. Don't be hesitant. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you read enough books. Don't wait until you take enough classes. Just get in there. The best teaching that you can ever do, learning that you can never do is learning through experience. Learning by trial and error. What is it called? Learning by trial by fire, I think it's called. But yeah, that in all reality, that is the best way to learn. So just get in there, start getting after it, know your why, know why you're getting in there, and identify some goals that you want to hit, and let's get after it. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode. Again, I am your host, John Mendez. You can find me at JohnMendez_realtor and at Walk to Wealth on Instagram. Please make sure to subscribe and leave a review if you're loving the podcast so far. New episodes are released every Sunday. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Take care.